Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Christina and I am a genre-bending literary writer. And today we're going to talk about something that I know very, very well. We're going to talk about burnout. I had a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago, and she was talking about how she was experiencing burnout and was just kind of feeling the pressure to stop writing, basically. I think that a lot of creative people sort of experience this, especially I think around this time of year. You know, it's November. Yesterday we had our first little glimpse of snow, which means winter is, right around the corner. And as we get to the end of the year and there's less sunlight, there's less warmth, I find that a lot of us are kind of feeling this weight of it's the end of the year. What have you done? What are you doing? And not only that, but there's the holidays and there is the end of the year when in terms of work schedules. And if you've been going all year long, you may start to feel the weight of just going 100 miles an hour for months on end. And some people, it's years on end. In the case of my friend, I think she's working on her fifth book right now. Maybe she just wrapped up her fifth book. And I know she has been going for years. And I think it's finally starting to hit her a little bit that she needs to take a break. For me, my burnout came about 2 years ago. And I talked about this very briefly in the last video. I think it was building my garden. I think it was that video. Although it might have been the one about my biggest mistake. But anyway, my burnout came around March 2022. I had pretty much spent March 2020 to March 2022 trying to write a novel. I hadn't written a novel and finished a long piece since 2004. So to come back 16 years later was a big for me. But, we were in the middle of the pandemic, or no, that was more like the beginning of the pandemic. And I was in lockdown. My job was considered essential, but we could work from home. So basically, I was like, you know what? I'm never going to get this time again to just stay home. I have nowhere to go. My day job is basically a regular 9 to 5 job, but at 5 o'clock, that's the end. I don't need to do any work afterward. I don't have kids. I don't have anyone to take care of. All I have to do is take care of myself. And I said, you know what? This is the perfect time to write a novel. And so I sat down and I had an idea that I had like roughly sketched out, I think the previous year in 2019, but I never did anything with it. And I went back and I looked at it and I had this other piece that I had like started, but I didn't know where it was going. And I said, you know what if we just mush those together? Because they could work. So that's what I did. I went ahead and I started this new novel with these two separate ideas that I had had. And I got those together and I started writing. And I started writing this book and writing this book and writing this book. And suddenly it was 2021 and I still was not done. And I workshopped a little bit of it. And, people in my critique group were like, oh, this is interesting. And maybe you could do this and maybe you could do that. And I was like, yeah. So I went back and I started all over again. And I was writing more and writing more. And I remember writing a blog post. And if you haven't visited my blog, go visit my blog. The link is in the description box. But I started writing this blog in January of 2022. and it said, I am going to get a draft done by March, or I'm not writing this book. And I kid you not, I got to February and I was like, F this book. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to write this book anymore. It just froze me. And that's the only way. My brain literally would not work. I could not figure out how to write this book. I felt like I was writing the same sentences over and over again. I felt like I was a terrible writer. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I've been writing for a really long time, and all of a sudden it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I need to stop. I just need to stop. Now, I had gone through burnout a little bit before, years ago, when I had written that book, and in 2004, and then I spent 4 years trying to sell it, and then I just ended up quitting writing altogether, only to come back like a year later. So this time, in March of 2022, I knew I wasn't going to stop writing. I was not going to quit writing. But I had to ask myself, do you want to pursue this as an actual viable career? Or do you want to just keep this a hobby and you just write short stories once in a while and you get one published a year and, hey, that's good enough. It was like, what did I really want to do? And it took some time to figure that out. So for 6 months, I did not write. I did not write at all. And I didn't feel guilty about it. What I did instead was I started a business. Inflation was starting to creep up. We all remember that well. It wasn't that long ago. I'm in the grocery store going, that was $1 cheaper a month ago. What's going on here? So most definitely I had to figure out how to earn some more money. And I thought, you know what? I like to go to the thrift store. I like to dig through, antique malls, and I love a good sale. So I started reselling. I opened up a account on Poshmark and started going to the thrift store and finding, clothing and purses and a few other little things that I could flip for money. And I did that for about a year, from about April 2022 to about April 2023. I sold on Poshmark and I did not make hardly any money. My profits were very, very, very low. But I had a great experience. And I say that as someone who learned a lot about herself by challenging herself. And basically shifting my creativity from writing to something else, exploring other parts of my personality. I had been cooped up for 2 years, and now everything was back open. My job started bringing us back into the office, although it was only 1 day a week. And irony upon ironies, actually that's not very ironic, but anyway, now I work full time. I took another position in the company, and they were like, you can work full time from home now. So I'm back to where I was, 2 years ago. Strange, I know, but that's a side note. Let's get back on track. So yeah, the 2022, being a reseller forced me to get back out into the world. And all of a sudden I was every week busy. Every week I was running to the post office. Every week I was dealing with the missteps and the mishaps and the weirdness that is a thrift store week after week. I love the thrill of the hunt. I don't really love shopping, but I like finding cool things. And every week I got to indulge that, so much so that I actually don't shop a whole lot now. I kind of burned myself out shopping, but I really loved just doing something different other than staying at home and writing. And 6 months after I started doing the reselling around September 2022, I got an idea for a new short story. And I was like, you know what? Let's write it. And so, in between steaming out clothing so that it wasn't all wrinkled when I took pictures of it, and writing descriptions and taking measurements and running back and forth to all the different thrift stores in my area, I wrote a 3,000 word short story that was actually pretty darn good. And I hadn't had the idea for years and years floating in my head. It was just something that occurred to me. And like a week later, I was like, you know what? We should write it. And I wrote it, finished it, and when we had a critique group in early 2023, I submitted it to them to read. And one of my friends said, "Oh my God, you are back. You're back. This is classic you." And I really felt good about that. I also had done my taxes at that point, and I realized that I wasn't really making a profit from doing reselling. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to resell anymore. And that was okay, because I learned that I was not lazy. I was not somebody who didn't know how to hustle. I absolutely knew how to hustle. I would spend 4-5 hours on my Saturday mornings into Saturday afternoon every week for a year searching through thrift stores. I would drive to 2 or 3 thrift stores. I thrifted one time after my job. Now, my job, the one day a week that I was going in, is an hour and 15 minutes from my house. So I stopped on my way home after commuting about an hour, and I stayed at that thrift store for probably another hour or two, and then I got home. I remember getting home at like 8:30 because I was mad that I had missed the first half of The Resident, and I was like, shoot, I'm missing The Resident. But I got caught up in the thrift store. And then I got home at like 8:30 at night, and I was like, oh, I stayed too long. But I was not lazy, I knew how to hustle. I thought maybe I would be scared to like run my own business, but no, I actually really enjoyed it. So the only thing that really, I think made me tired of writing was that I was writing this same story. And I, once again, had kind of put all my eggs, remember the little basket, I put all my eggs in that one little basket, thinking that that's what you're supposed to do in order to get this writing career. And it's not. And it doesn't mean that you should be writing whenever you're inspired all the time. Writing is work. I needed a plan. I needed a plan for how I was going to live the next 30 years, God willing, 40 years, God willing, 50 years. Let's aim for that, I'll be in my 90s. But the next 50 years as a writer. And it wasn't going to be throwing myself into one project for 2 years and not doing anything else. I needed to look at my writing career in a different way, not as the sole thing that I did, but part of this whole life that I have. I really think that some people get burned out because they eat, sleep, and breathe something. They're not allowed to get off the treadmill. You lose your curiosity for life. And curiosity and creativity go hand in hand, like a little friendship hold. If you're not curious about the world around you, if you're not curious about other people and how people live their lives, if you're not curious about how stuff works, I think you're going to find that you're going to get burnt out. I think you're going to find that you're like, I don't have any more ideas and I don't know what to write. Get curious about stuff. How do people in countries that don't have running water access, how do they get water? For me, it would be, how do aliens that, live in colder climates, adjust here if they end up in, in America? What if aliens that are used to being from some frozen planet end up in Nevada? Like, how would they adapt? That's the kind of stuff I think about. But yeah, curiosity. So, my advice to my friend who was talking about she was being burnt out was, I said, I think you need to live some life. I think you need to go out and travel and eat some really good food and hang out with your husband and hang out with your kids and not have to worry about appeasing your editor and your agent and your fans and stuff like that. Sometimes people work and work and work and work because it starts off with them really enjoying it, but then it becomes a burden because you're working and not living. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't work. I have a job. I understand you need money, but I want people to understand that part of being someone who is creative is also someone who is curious about life and lives life. I make a point to make time for friends and family on Sundays every week. I don't just write for, 6 hours a day on the weekends. Sometimes it feels like I do. But I also realized that along with working on multiple projects, maybe not at the same time, but, I always have a few fires in the iron. I don't know why it's hard for me to say that phrase, but I always have a few irons in the fire. And I can always work on different things to keep my mind, going back and forth. But I also feel like sometimes it's important to just step away from the writing and just experience the world. It is very easy to sort of just fall into a routine. It's very easy to fall into the mundane, and you have to watch it. You have to watch and make sure that that doesn't happen, because that's where your curiosity dies. And we don't want that. We want people to stay creative. We want you to stay curious. And that's hard sometimes when you're in a routine and you're not really making time to explore that curiosity, whether it's traveling, experiencing stuff in your own hometown, making time for friends and family and not thinking about writing, like whatever it happens to be. Burnout is definitely something that everybody, I think, experiences. But I think you can mitigate it when you decide to indulge your curiosity. And so for me, I learned that by going off and exploring some other interests I had for 6 months. When I came back to writing, because I always knew I was going to come back to writing, I never thought I would quit. But when I came back to writing, not only did I think about my writing career in terms of what I was going to write and, I have this new idea, but I also thought about how I was going to carve it out. I actually had been thinking about starting a YouTube channel for a while, for like a year, before I finally got up the nerve to actually hit record and post. But, I have a plan for kind of how I want my creative career to unfold. And so far it's going the way that I want it to. And we'll see. We'll see if this plan was good or if it wasn't good. But so far, I'm really happy with the direction that my creative life has gone. I don't think it's a coincidence that I started writing that short story, and then I spent a good chunk of 2023 working on another story, which I have finished, and I workshopped last week. So we'll see what happens with that story. I actually have to do a little bit more work on it to get it to a place where I'm happy with it. It was one of those long short stories, and I kind of cut it down But when I workshopped it last week, everybody said, I feel like this is a longer piece. And I said, it is. I just cut it and I need to go back and add more stuff back in. So, that'll be after this draft of this book. Right now, I am solely focused on the draft of this, what I hope is a novel, maybe not a long novel, but yeah, so I'm finishing stories and I'm posting things on Amazon, my short stories that have been published. I am putting them up for sale slowly but surely. I usually do one a quarter. And I also started this YouTube channel to talk about writing and publishing and creativity and inspiration. So I'm keeping myself busy by doing all these different jobs as a creative person. And I really like it. I really like the direction that it's going. Just when I think, oh, I'm getting bored with something, nope, you know what? You can switch gears. You can work on this short story, or you can work on this novel, or I can work on, videos. There's plenty of channels for me to pour my creativity into. And hopefully this will keep me from burning out. I know some people would probably think like, oh, that's a lot of stuff to do. But again, I think burnout comes from lack of curiosity. So as long as I stay curious about stuff, I won't really feel like I'm burning out. Also, I make a point, again, to take time away from writing and away from creative things to indulge other curiosities that I have. I mentioned that I'm kind of burnt out from shopping, but I still go to the thrift store every now and then and just see if I can find something interesting for myself. Maybe I just stay in the books section or something like that. But also, I'm a big TV and movie girl, so I go and hang out with my family and, we watch movies. We're watching Alex Cross right now on Amazon Prime. So far, it's pretty good, and, just living life. Just living life. So if you're feeling burnt out, take a moment and think about when's the last time you did something that didn't involve writing, or your regular routine. And I'll challenge you on this. This was something I started doing in 2023, and I have continued it into 2024, and I will probably continue it into 2025. And that is once a month, I do something I've never done before. Now, it can be as simple as I'm going to go down this road in this neighborhood that I've never been before. Or it could be as complicated as I don't know how to do this video editing software. Let me learn it. Maybe you eat at a restaurant you've never ate at before. Or maybe you go to a bookstore you've never gone to before. I love finding the used bookstores all over the DMV, and I will make a point just to go to a bookstore that I've never been to before because I want to see what they got, I did that also with thrift stores, and I discovered the wonderful 2nd Avenue in Columbia, Maryland, which is I think it's actually the biggest thrift store in Maryland, but it's fantastic. Love it to death. I've also been to, if you can hear that, that's my neighbor. Somebody's at their door and I can hear the doorbell. Hopefully the microphone didn't pick it up. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, the thrift store. So yeah, the challenge is once a month, do something you've never done before, like really never done before. And maybe it's something that scares you. Maybe it's something that you've always wanted to do, but you never had the nerve to do it, like skydive. Or it can be something as simple as, you know what? I always buy strawberry yogurt. Maybe I'm going to buy blueberry yogurt this month. Whatever it is. But constantly trying something new will get you out of that fear of doing something new, so that if you want to do something really big, like say start a YouTube channel, you start it. because you're already used to doing something uncomfortable every single month, something that you've never thought of before. And you know what? I want to also say just very quickly, every time I do something that scares me, I always am grateful that I did it. Always. I've never really regretted doing something that I was nervous about. And I always felt like, why didn't I do this sooner? You know? So if you're feeling burnt out, take time to live your life. Try doing some new things. Don't really worry about whether or not it's the right thing or whether or not it's going to be beneficial to you. Instead, just live and do your best to refill that well of curiosity. Okay, I think that's enough babbling for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched to the end, I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you watch this. It is Thanksgiving week here in the United States. So if you celebrate Thanksgiving and you're going to your ritual sacrifice, shout out if you know that reference. I hope you have a wonderful time with your friends and family. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you have a great Thursday. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you all on the next video. Bye.